September 11, 2001, a day that shattered the illusion of American security and changed global politics forever. Smoke rose from the Twin Towers, chaos filled the streets, and within hours, the United States stood on the brink of a new era, an era defined by fear, vengeance, and power. Amidst the shock and mourning, one man stood before a shaken nation and declared something that would shape decades to come. Our war on terror begins with Al-Qaeda, but it does not end there. This was the beginning of Bush's war declaration against terror. What started as a national tragedy soon evolved into a global campaign, one that redrew borders, redefined alliances, and rewrote the rules of warfare. In this video, we'll dive deep into the real story behind George W. Bush's declaration of the war on terror, the speech that united a nation, divided the world, and left behind a legacy still debated today. When the planes hit the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, America found itself under direct attack for the first time in modern history. The Bush administration, only 8 months into its first term, faced a nightmare scenario. The U.S. intelligence community scrambled to identify the culprits, while millions of Americans demanded justice. Within 24 hours, the name Osama bin Laden and his network Al-Qaeda dominated every headline. Inside the White House Situation Room, discussions began, not about law enforcement, but war. Bush, once seen as an inexperienced leader, suddenly became the face of American resolve. And within days, the phrase war on terror began appearing in internal memos. On September 20, 2001, George W. Bush addressed a joint session of Congress, a speech that would echo through history. His tone was resolute, his message simple. Every nation, in every region, now has a decision to make. Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists. This binary worldview, good versus evil, would define not only U.S. foreign policy, but also its moral compass for years. Bush's declaration wasn't just against terrorists. It was a declaration of global intent, signaling that America would use all tools of power, military or otherwise, to eradicate terrorism wherever it existed. Almost overnight, the world's most powerful military machine shifted gears. The Patriot Act was signed, expanding government surveillance. The Department of Homeland Security was created, and within weeks, U.S. troops invaded Afghanistan, targeting Al-Qaeda strongholds and their Taliban hosts. But the war on terror didn't stop there. The narrative of preemptive defense, stopping threats before they emerged, became the new American doctrine. What followed was a geopolitical domino effect. Alliances formed, intelligence agencies expanded, and the U.S. defense budget skyrocketed. The war on terror changed more than battlefields. It reshaped diplomacy, trade, immigration, and even technology. Nations across the globe adopted their own anti-terror laws, often using the rhetoric of security to justify mass surveillance and political crackdowns. In the Middle East, power vacuums emerged. And in the United States, the once unified patriotism of post-9/11s slowly evolved into division. Questions about motives, oil, and misinformation began to dominate discussions. The Iraq War became the most controversial chapter of this global crusade. Launched under the claim that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction, that claim would later be discredited. But the invasion had already changed the course of the Middle East forever. As the war on terror expanded, it blurred the lines between defense and aggression, justice and revenge. Civilian casualties mounted, drone warfare escalated, and America's moral authority began to fade in the eyes of the world. Yet domestically, Bush's approval ratings soared in the early years. His message of unity, "We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail," resonated with a nation still grieving. Midway, CTA, if you're finding this breakdown insightful, Dan, T, forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us continue exploring the untold stories behind world-changing events. Back to the story. The war on terror was not just fought with bombs and bullets, but with information, fear, and perception. Media coverage fueled a constant sense of threat, and terror alert levels became a part of daily American life. The color-coded system, green, yellow, orange, Red was more than policy. It was psychology. It kept the public alert, anxious, and supportive of government actions abroad. As years passed, however, skepticism grew. Whistleblowers exposed intelligence failures. Investigations revealed that much of the intelligence used to justify the Iraq War had been exaggerated or misinterpreted. Critics accused the Bush administration of using the war on terror to expand executive power, silence dissent, and reshape the global order under American dominance. Still, from Bush's perspective, the war on terror was not optional. It was existential. He often described it as a generational struggle, comparing it to World War II and the Cold War. He believed that spreading democracy in the Middle East was the long-term solution to extremism. Whether that vision succeeded or not remains one of history's biggest debates. Internationally, the war on terror reshaped the global security architecture. NATO invoked Article 5, the Collective Defense Clause, for the first time in its history. Countries from Europe to Asia joined the US-led coalition. Yet, at the same time, anti-American sentiment surged in parts of the Muslim world, where US interventions were seen as imperial overreach. The cost of this war was staggering. Trillions of dollars spent, hundreds of thousands of lives lost, and an entire generation of veterans carrying its scars. The psychological impact at home was equally deep. Racial profiling, airport security checks, and the normalization of surveillance created a new kind of America, one where safety often came at the expense of privacy. By the time Bush left office in 2009, the world had changed beyond recognition. His war on terror had outlived his presidency. His successors continued drone strikes, surveillance programs, and counter-terror operations under different names. Even today, the policies that began with Bush's declaration still shape global politics, immigration, and security strategy. 2 decades later, historians are divided. Some argue that Bush's response was necessary to protect America and deter future attacks. Others say it was an overreach, one that destabilized entire regions and eroded civil liberties at home. But one fact remains undeniable. That night, in September 2001, when Bush stood before Congress and declared war on terror, he set the course for the 21st century. It's easy to forget how united the country felt in those early days. The flags on every porch, the God Bless America chants, the surge of national pride. Yet over time, that unity splintered under the weight of endless conflict and political polarization. The same words that once inspired courage now raise questions about accountability, power, and truth. In hindsight, Bush's war declaration against terror wasn't just a military campaign. It was the beginning of a new world order, one where surveillance became normal, fear became policy, and security became a justification for almost anything. The consequences of that declaration are still unfolding today, from airport scanners to drone warfare to geopolitical tension in the Middle East and beyond. As we look back, the speech stands as a turning point, not just in American history, but in global consciousness. It redefined what it means to fight an enemy without borders, uniforms, or nations. It turned the concept of war into something invisible, endless, and everywhere. If you want to understand how that single declaration shaped the world we live in today, make sure to like this video, share it with others who care about truth and history, and hit the notification bell, because next, we're uncovering the untold side of the war on terror's legacy. Don't miss it. The war on terror began with a speech, but its echoes continue to define our time. And perhaps that's the most powerful weapon of all. Not the declaration itself, but the world it created.